to another episode of Anything and Everything with Donna Lisa. I'm your host, Donna Lisa, and today I have a really special guest. I know I say that about everyone, but this woman has, she's a very busy single mom out there doing her thing with her new company, and I'm really excited to get her on the show. Cristina Patwa, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Donna. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for
Yeah,
what you do.
I'm so excited to have you on the show because I think your story is really interesting. So, for the viewers and the listeners out there, I actually came across Christina's personal page through her business page. I saw like a sponsored ad on Instagram because most people who know me know that I look for new content on social media. So, I'm always looking for the next person that I want to interview and do some background research on them. So, I came across your company's page, Enroot, and I thought this is a really cool idea. And then I saw that it was, women owned. Well, you're a co-founder of the company, correct?
That's
And
right.
then you're also a minority, which I thought was really cool. And I said, okay, I need to get this lady on my podcast. So welcome again.
Thank you.
Yeah, I definitely want everyone to kind of hear your story. You and I we caught up offline, and it's a great story. You migrated here from the Philippines. Just like, I mean, my parents did that as well, but you were a very young girl when you did it. And you've kind of worked your way through corporate America, ventured off into entrepreneurship as much as you kind of didn't want to. And you're doing so well with it now. So tell us a little bit about your background, how you grew up, what made you decide to eventually leave the corporate structure and venture off into entrepreneurship.
Thank you so much, Donna. So I was born in Davao, Philippines, and I have relatives in Manila. My cousins, my aunt are there, who I love dearly too. And so we left when I was 8 in 1988. Because as you guys know, there was so much turmoil there during that
Right.
time, with everything going on. It just wasn't safe for us to be there. And there were some dangerous things that were happening to our family and all of that just around that
Yeah.
time frame, which was so common. And so I don't think we were looking to leave. Everything I knew as a kid, it just, when you're 8, my daughter's now 7, I can't imagine, you know,
Yeah.
leaving your cousins and, people, your aunts and your grandmother, people you love, to come to something you have no idea what the culture will be like. The language in New York City of all places, and Flushing, Queens, and so
Wow.
so we got here, but it was tough because it was different, and you don't really feel like you fit in the same way. The schools
Like
look
the
different.
culture is different, huh?
The culture is different.
Yeah.
Your friends are different.
Right.
I got made fun of for like my accent, and like
Hmm.
the way I dressed wasn't like cool enough apparently then.
Right.
Like, all the things like that that I don't know. No one made fun of me when I was in the Philippines, but like moving here, you just stood out so much, like knowing like you were nothing
Right.
like the American kids that were here. And and so my parents, they were pretty much in survival mode. They needed to get jobs and work, and they needed to make sure we were studying, and like that we had no choice to kind of go back. So they were accountants, and it
Okay.
was kind of like in our soup every day, in our sinigang every day, that we were all going to be accountants, because that was the stable, safe choice to be. And yeah, I'm grateful to start my career with such a technical
Hmm.
foundation. To know my numbers well is such an asset today to any entrepreneur, that it's just so
Right.
important to be comfortable in that. And so that happened early, whether I wanted to or not, and I went to business school out here in California after
Okay.
after really spending time in New York and working in financial services, kind of working up the ladder and really competing. I feel like New York was where I cut my teeth. I had learned in order to be successful, you kind of had to outwork everybody. And I think
Right.
Filipinos, we know how to do that. You know,
It's
like
in our DNA.
I don't know where we find the extra strength or extra
Right.
time. It's like a button we can activate that when things feel more stressful or
Mhm.
whatever it is, it's like almost like the superhero Filipino button you can press that gives you
That
extra
is so
energy,
true.
right?
Yes.
To kind of keep going. And in New York had that kind of gritty, you know, if you weren't going to compete, every year you'd get ranked, you
Hmm.
know, with all the other consultants to see if you were performing well. And, you know, it just was very competitive. So it just felt very stressful, but also really tested, you know, who the core of me would be.
Right.
And and so when I went to business school out here in LA, it was the first time I could ask myself, well, what would I want to do? What is
Right.
interesting for me? And I know I share this with your parents, Donna, but
Mhm.
growing up, we watched Sound of Music like 100
Yeah.
times a day in the Philippines. We knew every part of that movie. And here at Fox, near UCLA, the Fox Lot Studios, they have a big mural of Maria in the mountains
Okay.
singing "The Hills Are Alive," and I just knew, I just felt like, okay, I want to figure out how to do something that felt more
Hmm.
joyful to me, and Sound of Music was a part of a joyful time that was very safe for me as a child, where I could still be a child in the Philippines, you know.
Right.
And so there was something very tender, like I had such a tender association with that. So I said, well, if I have to work hard anyway, you
Hmm.
know, which is all I've known up until this point in my life, is just constant, sheer hard work. You know, why don't I do it somewhere that feels a little bit more joyful or connected to me in some way? And so I wanted to understand entertainment. So I called up every alumni at Fox and said, I will work
Oh.
for free. You just teach me. I have no idea what the business of media actually is. Will you just teach me? I promise I will work hard, and, you know, I'm capable
Hmm.
and all of these things. And sure enough, there were some kind folks in the network that helped me out. And then I eventually was able to land a job. I wanted a job at Disney. I wanted kind of, you know, the Filipino
Yeah.
blue chip, you know, like
Right.
if we're going to work somewhere, I'm like, oh, I'd love to do like Disney. That
Hmm.
feels like, you know, Little Mermaid to me, and Belle and all of that. And so I worked in their TV
Okay.
division, where I would build businesses around our TV shows like Lost or Grey's Anatomy and Desperate Housewives. We would
Okay.
come out with apparel, you know, perfumes, DVDs, video games,
Hmm.
etc. And then from there, we would, you know, we would go on to create a huge business for the television space, because all those shows really hit and worked. And then JJ's agent, who created Lost, his
Hmm.
agent is John, who's my current business partner at the time. He
Okay.
was working and one of the owners of William Morris, which was a big talent agency here in Hollywood. He started to work with Hasbro, and so he hired myself and my boss over at the time to come and really work on building Hasbro's media businesses. They wanted to go into film and television and digital and all of that. So so I came on to really help them create those businesses, which was also amazing, because those properties are things I grew up with, like Transformers, My Little
Right.
Pony, and GI Joe. And a few years into that, my partner John really wanted to start, you know, his own company, and he wanted to do that together. I did not want to be an entrepreneur. It felt way too scary for me. Um, you know, I was so risk averse for most of my life, because all I knew was that if I don't find something safe or
Hmm.
stable, that we'd have to go back to the Philippines. And so it took a lot to take that leap of faith, but
Right.
I'm glad I did. And you know, I've worked with John now for almost 15 years,
Okay.
and we've been building some really beautiful businesses together, minority driven ones with
Nice.
doses,
Right.
and Enroot is no different. In fact, if not even more personal. for me in a lot of ways. So so I'm really proud of the partners and team members I have in creating Enroot, and I hope now at this stage I can be an entrepreneur for as long as I can be. You
Right.
know, God willing, that
Oh
could
my
be.
gosh, you have so much experience too coming into this with your business partner. And I also read up a little bit on, I guess, so tell me a little bit about how Brad Pitt fits into this, because I know there are a lot of Brad Pitt fans out there, but he's actually involved with Enroot as well, right?
Yeah, you know what's so fascinating is
Mm-hmm.
growing up as a kid in Davao and seeing him on the magazine.
Yeah,
Like, who would think that some little Filipino girl,
right.
literally
That's why I'm like,
from
oh
the
my gosh.
Philippines,
I mean, I
would
read the
somehow,
story and I thought that is interesting. So, yeah.
yeah, yeah. So John has known Brad for 25 years now,
Okay.
and we've gotten to know him because there were other businesses that he started to
Got it.
gain interest in that we started to get involved with him in. And so this really came out of a lovely, time together,
Mm-hmm.
enjoying a great meal together and talking about all of our personal interests for wanting something that felt like a non-alcohol, healthy, beautiful drink that you could have with these fine meals, these fine foods, that could feel like a cocktail or a champagne,
Mm-hmm.
that there really wasn't, there wasn't really a drink that could be that in this market. And so so we knew there was an interest and opportunity personally for us to go in
Mm-hmm.
that space. It's his idea. What's
Nice.
amazing is I think many people think Brad and they think of his amazing roster of films that he was involved
Right.
in, and also what he helped to create that he may not have been involved in,
Mm-hmm.
which is so beautiful and impactful in in cinema. But I think there's also a side to him that continues, like an artist loves to create
Right.
beautiful things that from his point of view should also exist. And this healthy kind of non-alcoholic drink was something we all saw an interest in
Right.
personally and said, why doesn't something like that truly exist? And so um at the time, I was coming from it from more of a business point of view. That's
Right.
really my background now up until this point. And I was saying, whoa, hold on. Food and beverage in general
Mm-hmm.
is super competitive. You know,
It
what would be,
is.
it
It,
really is
yeah.
a high failure rate. I don't
So
know,
were
you
you,
know.
your thought process was, hey guys, how are we going to make ourselves stand out from the rest?
My thought
Mhm.
process was more like, why would we need to exist? Like, why would we be different
Right.
from the thousands of products that get launched every year? Why would our company be any different? And like, what would be the reason for us existing? Because
Mhm.
otherwise, how, I can't imagine it fitting into the ethos of what John and I now do. Like, we like to build companies that have a
Mhm.
reason for being and have a purpose and a real identity. And so in talking through that, that's where these discussions about my grandmother and growing up and my time in the Philippines were brought back up again, because I said, what would be interesting, we all have kids. We
Right.
all know that they don't have access to even knowing where their ingredients come from anymore.
Right.
Like, that food has evolved to being so manufactured and so fast,
Processed.
so
Yeah.
processed, that they don't know what it's like to actually have buko juice from the tree
Right.
with your merienda, and your mango from in the newspaper, because
Mhm.
there were no pesticide, from the newspaper, and to actually
Right.
know where your food and beverages are coming from. Like, our kids, like my daughter, like she won't have that luxury of sort of knowing that experience.
Right.
And here I was with a grandmother who just turned 95, and
Nice.
who I just always admired and looked up to. She was like many Filipino women. She's like, just just really had conviction and
Mhm.
had no fear. And here I was like, a very anxious person, having a grandmother who never,
Right.
who was fearless in my eyes. And growing up, what was wonderful is that she took me to a lot of her farms. I got to, and took me to a bunch of her meetings. I
Okay.
got to see firsthand, and I got to live firsthand something that I didn't know I could value until I became a mother myself.
Right.
Right? Like the that experience, I didn't realize I could value it. I was so focused on just surviving here
Right.
that I never had a moment to look at what I don't have here, or what my daughter won't get to experience. It became clear that if there was a purpose for a company to exist in food and beverage, it would truly be to have the soul of what my grandmother gave me. If I could take her soul and what I experienced with her, put that in a bottle
Mm-hmm.
and put that in a company, and give a company her soul and what she would do. If it were her community, if it were, I would want a company to have those values. And what's great about John and Brad is that they truly understand that.
Mm-hmm.
Brad having had this experience of wine growing for 12 years now, himself,
Right.
and knowing the value of planting vines, and caring about the earth, and our impact. And John having his history and his family's legacy as well, with the Holocaust. I think there were commonalities, even though all three of us came from
Mm-hmm.
completely different places. We
Right.
all knew that giving Enroot a soul like that, the soul of a Filipino Lola,
Right.
would make it matter
Mm-hmm.
for me. Would feel like we're rooted in our own roots in some
Mm-hmm.
way, and we're wanting to hand off values that I would hope my children would want to value in the future
Yeah.
too. So we knew if we wanted to exist for a reason, that it would be more than just creating a beverage. That there would be, otherwise any company can create a beverage.
Right.
Coca-Cola or Pepsi could do that tomorrow. But what is our purpose? Why would we all put our efforts into something like
Mm-hmm.
this when we can do anything else, that might be interesting at this stage? And so that's when we started to, he basically said, we need folks that will tell us what tastes good and what doesn't
Right.
taste good, like real connoisseurs that know this. And that's when we reached out to the James Beard Foundation. We love their
Okay.
advocacy work. They've been always, their foundation does so much to give back in the food space, and continuously challenges themselves to keep
Mm-hmm.
doing that as things evolve. And we knew they had a great chef community that that really care about
Right.
their food and the integrity of the ingredients. And we're doing kind of this farm to table movement at the time, that really was just starting when we started this. And so we were able to work with them and a chef community that they helped curate with us, for us, to really create something special, that took no shortcuts. It took us 2 years to figure out, could
Wow.
we even develop it? But I think it's so beautiful. And, I think the
Right.
experience with them has also been really beautiful.
So who comes up with the flavors that, for the teas that you have? Obviously, you do, you pay homage to your grandmother, your Lola, and, what you grew up being around her. But moving forward, do you come up with all the different flavors for the teas?
I don't
Okay.
trust myself, Donna. I don't, I know what I like to eat, but I know that may be not what other people like to eat. And I
Okay.
think being a good entrepreneur, you need to know what you're good at and what you're not
Right.
good at, and I know that, I'm not a James Beard chef. And
So you leave it to the experts.
I
No,
definitely leave
that's a
it
good
to the
point.
experts. They are really good at what they do. They really care about
Right.
these ingredients. I am obviously partial to the
Hmm.
mango ginger turmeric. I grew up eating mangoes all the time, and
Yeah.
every Filipino dish I love obviously is it has gingers, and so to me that to me feels most like home. But
Right.
I truly, these chefs come from such a great culinary point of view that that I really wanted them to have the creative freedom to come up with these ideas. And look, some of them
Yeah.
did not taste good, and some of them that some people thought would taste good, some people didn't think so. And
Right.
then, like it's such a great creative process. I think that's what's so beautiful about, really,
Mhm.
really bringing to the table, bringing to the table people who really love what they do, is that they will tell you when something is beautiful and then we've got it, we've arrived, or
Right.
when something's not quite there yet and we need to keep iterating,
That's so
and
funny.
these chefs
Right.
will tell you.
It's
Yeah.
funny how you bring up ginger and turmeric because, obviously I'm Filipino, but my mother used to juice, ginger and everything else, and a lot of ginger. So strong. It was like potent, but
So strong and addictive.
my kids never liked it. And now, I'm juicing a little bit more than you used to, but I've been putting ginger in it. And I'll tell my kids, because, they're American born. So same with me, but I grew up with a little bit more of the Filipino background. My kids are very Americanized, so they're not used to that. But when I make juice for them and I give it to them, they go, "Mom, this is just like Mama's juice. It's so strong and full of ginger. Like, can you make it sweeter?" But yeah, I don't know if it's a Filipino thing, but ginger is definitely something in a lot of it that's put into a lot of our dishes. I
Yes.
love the flavor. My kids are still getting used to it. So if you do have a ginger juice tea, I would definitely buy it. I don't think my kids would.
Yes, and what's funny is there will be people who will spit out that mango ginger.
Oh,
They're
really?
like, I don't like, you guys really put ginger in there. And
Right.
I'm like, well, if it's ginger, it's a real fresh
Yeah.
or 100% organic ginger we're putting in there,
Right.
So, you're gonna taste it just like in our Filipino dishes. You
Hmm.
totally taste it, and I think our chefs truly wanted the ingredients to show up. You know,
Good.
yeah, which is great. And I think what's so lovely about this is here's a beverage that has so much flavor. It's this
Hmm.
20-hour slow cold brew to get all of the flavors of the botanicals, and then it uses the real ginger fibers and real peach purees,
Right.
real fibrous teas. So you're getting a lot, of all of the pieces of the flavors to kind of meld and blend together. But at the end of the day, it's still 25 real clean calories and
Nice.
5 grams of sugar. And so, I have aunts and family members and all of that have diabetes, and I
Right.
like
Yeah.
once Coca-Cola came into our culture, it became a whole thing for all of us. So what I love the most about this is I feel like, yes, it's less sugar and I can taste that,
Right.
but get I still get satisfied with the flavors and the experience I'm getting without having to worry about the health impact.
Yeah.
This is a nice transition into something really beautiful that I can enjoy.
So it's flavorful and it's a little bit more on the healthier side compared to
Yes,
other tea. Yeah.
very much
No,
so.
totally get
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. So now where can people find Enroot? Is it just online for purchase only, or are you guys in stores as well?
So we just launched online, and
Okay.
we're starting to roll out where there's this wonderful distribution and sales partner that we have. They're called Vineyard Brands,
Okay.
and they're a great sales and distribution company for a lot of the fine wines. And so we're their first non-alcoholic beverage
Wow.
that they're carrying. And so we just actually today, they just received shipments of our products. So we're just launching and starting to roll out with them. So we hope to
Nice.
be in more restaurants and hotels and retailers. We hope that people enjoy this experience as much as, our chefs and community have.
That's awesome. So do you guys have, now you have the distributor, do you guys have future plans to continue to grow Enroot?
Yes.
Whether, okay,
Yeah,
nice.
that's what I'm hoping for. We just started, so
Mm-hmm.
we want to hear everybody's feedback. We want to know what's working, what's not. Like every chef, our
Right.
chefs want to
They
keep
want feedback.
iterating together. Yeah, feedback, work
Yeah.
together, new ideas, etc. But I'm hoping Enroot can be, a company that truly is in the wellness space that can,
Mm-hmm.
help kind of redefine what a healthy, beautifully crafted beverage can look and feel like, one that's slowly made, and thoughtfully batched together,
Mm-hmm.
and that you can taste that in the difference, in the slew of things that are available out there.
Right. That's awesome. So now going back to you and and starting the business, I know how much time do you even have as a single mom to devote to this? Like, so for people listening and tuning in, a lot of them just don't have the extra time to venture off into this entrepreneurship role that you're doing. How do you balance your personal and your professional life, especially you being a single mom?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I don't view those times as two different times or two different
Okay,
people. I feel like all of it is integrated together. I could be, so my daughter loves that I'm an entrepreneur, and she loves the
that's
tea.
cool.
She keeps pitching a kid tea. So
That
we
is
have
so
that
cute.
caffeine. We have the strawberry one that she
Hmm.
loves, the caffeine free one that she loves. She's had to grow up in the same way my grandmother took
Right.
me to all of her farms and her
Hmm.
meetings with different business partners, and my daughter kind of, that's what she knows.
Right.
And I'm grateful that I can define a culture in my company. Most of the folks I've hired so far are all women, also some are
Mhm.
mothers, and we have that culture where we know, because we're moms, we're going to
Right.
get whatever it is we need to done. But if we
Hmm.
need the children to be in the office and
Right.
to run around while we're working, that's going to happen, and that's okay, because that's what gets us to live this integrated life.
Right.
And I do take the time. I think there was just a study that came out from Wharton that actually said that if you have too little time, you feel stressed and burnt out. We all know
Mhm.
that. But the study said that if you have too much time, you feel a loss of purpose, and there's
Right.
something there that's missing too. And so the sweet spot is like this 2 to 5 hour mark.
Hmm.
So I really do try to take the time, especially with my daughter, to really be in it with her.
Right.
And then when there are things that come up with work, I enjoy showing her
Hmm.
what I'm doing and explaining it to her, the whole process. I
That's
took her to the
awesome.
I took her to the manufacturing plants, for her to see how
Right.
we brew it, because we've had to create our own line there, how we brew it and all of that. I think for me, it all kind of feels like it's one integrated life, where both of these things are
Right.
just so important to me, and it's stressful. I think the only thing that grounds me is that I do take the time every
Hmm.
day. It may not be the full 2 hours, but I take the time every day to remind myself how far I've come, that
Right.
our family and everything I have it's so far from what I even thought I could be doing.
Hmm.
And even as a company, how far we've come, because it's so easy to be so critical of yourself. It's so
Right.
easy to be critical of myself, that if I don't deliberately take the moment to say, like, look how much you've done, you've got this, you could still keep going, like, look how much you've already done. Who would have ever thought that,
Especially as a female.
yeah, that
Yeah.
having that moment of gratitude just kind of reinforces, brings
Right.
a little bit of life back into it, to know, like, okay, I could always be critical and tough on myself, or
Hmm.
I can really step back and say, I came from nothing and didn't even know the language, and then
Right.
now I'm building things with with amazing people, you know, these great chefs, with Brad, with John, with the foundation, with, you know, with this community, and feel like, wow, that's already more than what the 6-year-old girl in me ever could have dreamed of. So keep going, because you're like, you got this, you know. Like
Right.
I take those moments of gratitude to and I have to force myself, because it doesn't happen naturally. Usually you're thinking about one thing to worry about after the other. So I really have to, it's my daily practice to force myself to say, no, you know, like issues will always come. There will always be a new worry. Something else will come. But this is amazing that you've done so much, you know, already. So keep going.
That's a great reminder. So I always ask my guests this question: is there a daily affirmation or a quote that you like to start your day off with? Or is, you know, in your situation, a daily routine? Is that something you always remind yourself of?
That's my practice.
Yeah.
You know, I'm grateful in that, you know, I have an amazing therapist
Okay.
that I knew that in order to work through my anxieties,
Right.
and to be a mom that I didn't know how to be, because I feel like I didn't know what kind of mom. Like
Nobody's
I didn't
prepared
even
for
know the
motherhood.
basic.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm like, I didn't feel maternal. You know, I didn't know, like, how, I didn't know how
Right.
that worked.
Yeah.
So I actually sought a therapist, who's a child's therapist,
Okay.
because I wanted to learn how to be a good mom.
Right.
And I knew I could get a business degree and get a CPA if I wanted to be a businesswoman, but I didn't know what I could get to be a good mother.
You
And
didn't know if
so,
you could take care of another human.
yeah, so I needed
Yeah.
like an MBA in being a mom or being a parent. And so
Right.
I sought an amazing therapist. And in that process, I also learned that I didn't want to be an anxious mom, you
Right.
know, because I grew up in a very anxious survival mode setting, and I didn't want to pass those things on. And so I found that I have to intentionally take the time to help myself, you know,
Right.
not always be so anxious. And this calmness and this gratitude really grounds me. It really grounds me, you know. And having a daughter is weird, because I see my younger self,
Right.
and but I see her having a real carefree childhood, and it's beautiful, and I want to preserve that, you know,
That's awesome.
and do that, you know. So yeah, so for me, yes, that's the daily thing that I'm practicing right now. I'm sure there will always be something
Right.
as I evolve and want to keep growing personally, but right now it really is this practice of gratitude. That sounds so simple, but my mind, it was always so fast and so used to one thing after the other that I'd never ever been able to take the time to do that.
So now, coming from, you know, immigrant parents like myself, I totally see where some of the pressure can lay on you. How were they, when you mentioned to them that you were going to venture off and be an entrepreneur, how did they take that?
I think they became confused even before that, when I told them that I
Oh,
wanted to go into entertainment.
okay.
They were like, "What is that? You know,
Right.
what do you mean?" Like, that felt very very risky for them, you know. And when I went to business school, I got accepted into UCLA and Stanford.
Okay.
And I think everybody just kind of assumed she's going to go to Stanford. And so something went wrong. I feel like the beginning of my black sheepness started at business school. Like, something, like I deviated
And you went to UCLA?
from the path and made my own first choice for myself, you
Right.
know. And it feels like you're being a black sheep. It feels like you're doing the wrong things. You feel guilty, you know. You don't, no one wants to disappoint their family, you
Right.
know, so you feel guilty. But I didn't realize that that was my way of finding my own identity, like figuring out who I was on my own, if I were to remove myself from my survival mode. Like, who am
Right.
I really, and what feels right to me, you know. And so I think our parents love us. They try to do the best that they can. They only know what they know, which was handed down to them too. They
Right.
didn't have therapists, child therapists, like access to these. I don't even know if that exists in the Philippines.
Probably
They,
not. It's not
they
a
didn't.
thing, especially in our culture. You're not
Yeah, they
allowed
didn't.
to want to go see a
You're
therapist.
not like, it means
Right.
something's wrong versus you wanting to seek an education and it,
Right.
like to figure out, like
Hmm.
what do I not know? It's not something. There's not that openness and
Right.
curiosity, that I think there are no podcasts like this.
Right.
There were no,
Well,
there was,
even you're right. It's like with this podcast, it's I have a corporate job. I was explaining that to you. I did venture off when I was let go a few years back to start my own design company because jobs weren't as they weren't available at the time. And my dad was like, "Why are you spending your money on that? Just go look for another corporate job. It's not stable." And I thought, well, I am, but in the meantime, I'm in survival mode. I was a mom with 3 young kids, and I needed to figure out to get some other income. So they do. You're right. It's not that they're disappointed in you. Sometimes the choices it makes them question. Like, well, does she
yes.
not know? Like, that's just not the right thing to do because it's not steady income. It's not stable for the family. Yeah,
My
venturing off.
my good friend who's also she's half Filipina. She's also Filipina, and she also sought a therapist earlier
Okay.
than I did, and she's one of the reasons, like, that became intriguing and
Right.
interesting to me. Once told me that one thing she was able to say to her family members, because I think our parents are genuinely, I think they come from a good place where they're trying to make us do what they would do, you know
Right.
like, because they're afraid, they're scared, right? They
Right.
want the safety, stability, all of that, so they just want us to be okay so they don't have to stress and worry, like,
And they don't
they
worry. They don't want to worry about our children that we're taking
yes,
care of. It's,
they don't want to have high blood from what we're going to do or anything
yes.
like that. Like, they don't want the stress of it, so they want to fix
Right.
it from they're fixing it from their point of view, and thinking that they actually, I think they're coming from a benevolent place, but the
Right.
execution is wrong because it's coming at us like you're controlling me or judging
Yes.
me, and it's very, very hurtful for somebody trying to find their identity or their joys.
Yes.
And my girlfriend would tell them, she would say, "You already had your turn, Tita. It's my turn
Yeah,
now.
that's
Had
true.
your turn, Mom. It's my turn now. You had your turn. This is like, it's for me now.
Right.
And she said it with such ease and without any anger or resentment or anything like that. And I said, "How do you do that?" And she said, "Oh, I let my therapist and I'm like, "Okay,
Right.
I need that. I need perspective to realize that they're doing what they know and they
Hmm.
think they're helping,
Right.
but it's to me it felt very hurtful, like, no, this is what I really want to do. I've got to go do that and see that through." So
That's
the
awesome.
entrepreneur thing, I think by then they were like, "Oh, we've already lost her. We lost her a lot." We
But
don't know what she's doing or all of that. We don't
but they're
know.
proud
She's
of you
doing her own
now.
thing. Yeah, I think I think they're surprised. I think they're surprised not only with my career, but what's they're most surprised about is my relationship with my daughter, because I raised her so differently. Like, she comes from a place where there's high love, but I also challenge her. Like, I know she's capable, and so she gets both, but I don't do it in the way that where for me it felt like survival and fear. It was all fear driven. I do it from a place of like, try it. I think if you keep practicing, you could get there. Don't you feel like you'd get there?
Right.
And do it from a place of love and more that you've got everything in you. If you can't figure it out, it just means we need more practice together. So we'll figure it out together. Like, it doesn't come from a fearful place. It comes from a new way that I've had to seek out and learn, a different approach that I wanted to go find out.
And is she very close to you, your
We're
daughter?
super, we're super,
That's awesome.
super cool. Yeah, we're connected. I would say well, because I want her to have freedom and independence of me. I don't want to control her. I want her to have her own thought. I only got to do that in business school, so I
Right.
was 25 at the time. I'd want her to have that since day one. I want her to feel like, okay, if you want to be a video game developer, let's try these classes for summer
Right.
school. And if you like it, then that's great. If not, try something else. Like, these are the ways you kind of figure out what feels right for you. And
And what you're passionate about.
your passion, her
Yeah.
music choice, her fashion sense is so different from mine. You know,
I think
she
all the
tells
kids are
me,
different.
yeah, they're so different. And I love it. I love it because it's who she is. I see
Right.
her own joy and her own identity early. You know, and she doesn't have to wait till she's 25 to give herself permission to find out who that is. I'd want her to know who she is inherently early on, which is so beautiful.
That's great. I
Yeah.
love that you are so open with her at such a young age, because growing up with Filipino parents, that's not it's not something we were able to do, is be that open with our parents. All they did was work, and we saw them work, and they groomed us for that in our adult life too. And so I'm doing the same thing you are with my kids. My kids are a little bit older, but I allowed them to kind of venture off and do, things that they're passionate about. Like my daughter, aside from playing soccer, she is into videography, photography,
Oh, beautiful.
production. And, I, with my background in events, I helped her kind of put together a concert last couple of years for young talent in town, in high school. And it was her first taste of like putting on a full-blown production. But a lot of her friends were like, that's really cool that your mom actually supports that, because it's not the standard thing that, you want your kids to just go to school, go to college, and then go get a good job. But I'm definitely letting her creative side, branch out, and she's finding herself. But it's great that you do that, because I don't think a lot of parents do that for their kids now. And that's the hardest thing, because sometimes they get groomed to go into these careers where they're just not into it. And then later on in life, they decide, okay, well, this is what I really want to do.
Right. I always, my parents were here a few months ago, and I told them for the first time I was able to say this, where I said, I don't hate you. I don't
Right.
I don't hate you. And I see that you love me. You really, really love me. And I also see that you were really worried and maybe overwhelmed with
Right.
being scared. Like, we only knew one, like, I don't blame you in thinking that we had to survive, that you just wanted us to be protected and be all right. That's a noble thing to want for your kids, but
Right.
there were some painful moments along the way, because I did want to be something different. And so I think they're very surprised. I think they're most surprised. They're surprised by me, but that's one thing, because they kind of could say, oh, maybe she was like a black sheep and went off and did her own thing. Who knows? She just went crazy and she lost her mind and went and did something. But I think they're most surprised by my daughter, because they're like, that's different.
Right.
She's different, but she is smart and all of the things that all the Filipinos value. But she's opinionated, and she thinks differently, because she's not confined.
She has a little more freedom to kind of think for herself. Yeah.
Yes.
And my kids too, which is great. I mean, it helps them kind of learn to make their own decisions, in life, instead of being told what to do. That's awesome. Well, I'm glad you guys have that open relationship, and your parents are a little more understanding. I'm sure they're very proud of where you've come from and where you are at today. I do appreciate you taking time out today to chat. I know you're a busy woman. It took, a couple of weeks to get you on the show, but
I'm so sorry.
No, you're fine. I mean, honestly, I was telling you this offline, is I constantly look for people on social media with interesting stories and backgrounds after I do research, and majority of the time, nobody responds back. And so when you replied back, I was like, oh my God, like, she responded. So, Yeah, so thank you. I think you have a lot of great information that people can take back, from whether they're thinking about getting into business or they're just, they're already in business and maybe things on how they can improve. So thank you for sharing your story. I appreciate it.
Donna, I love that you're doing this. The fact that you have 3 kids, you have multiple jobs and projects, you're taking care of your family and your loved ones, and you're taking the time out to seek stories and amplify them and share them. Um, it's a gift. It's,
Oh, thank
you
you.
shine. I see your light shining through, and I'm grateful that you were patient enough with me as we were launching everything, for you to want to do this with me. I appreciate you taking the time with me also.
Oh, no, anything to kind of share your story because I think everyone's story is very different. And I think a lot of people can take back a lot of good information from it because nobody ever really knows or cares to research too much about how a company got started. And that's what always interests me because like you, I went to business school. I was groomed for business. My parents owned a business. My brother and I had to work for my parents, and it's hard working for a family business. And then you venture off and do your own thing. And so just knowing, my parents' story on, being immigrants and starting their own, business out here and buying a franchise, I thought, everyone here has a story. And as I got to know a lot of my clients in the industry, like I was telling you, everyone has a different story and you never would know how they got to where they're at until you're taking the time to speak to them. So I do appreciate you sharing your story. I think you have great things coming your way with Enroot and in your other businesses. And I think your daughter's learning from an amazing woman. So
Thank you.
I wish you guys all the best in your business venture. And I definitely look forward to connecting again and seeing where your business has gone from today and where it's going again in the future.
We'll see. It was either a really
Yeah,
bad idea or
that was a great one. And you know what? And you learn, right?
just day
Everybody,
by day. Yeah,
right.
one foot in front of the other, So
Every
I
day is a different
appreciate you,
day.
Donna. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for the time.
Absolutely. I definitely look forward to seeing more of your social media posts. For people who are interested in finding you on social media, where can they find you?
At Drink and Root. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, have a good day, Chris.
You
I will chat with
too.
you later. Enjoy
Take
your
care.
weekend.
Bye, Donna.
Bye-bye.